At low tide on the Strait of 𝐉𝐴, the kelp forests rise just beneath the surface, amber and cathedral quiet, smelling of cold salt and something ancient. Harbour seals move through the canopy like shadows, but the canopy is thinner than it was, the water warmer than it should be, and the creatures that have shaped this corner of the Pacific Northwest for centuries are beginning to quietly disappear. Beneath that thinning canopy, the story gets more complicated, and the complications reach far further than the water's edge. The bull kelp forests of the Strait of 𝐉𝐴 function as rainforests of the sea. That is not metaphor, it is structural fact. Healthy, thick kelp forests are vital ecosystems. Rockfish shelter in the stipes. Lingcod hunt along the bottom where the light filters green and cold. And the southern resident killer whales, the orcas that have come to define this coastline for anyone who has ever stood on a Victoria headland and watched the strait, use these kelp-dense corridors as foraging ground, following the Chinook salmon that move through them. The remaining kelp beds in the Salish Sea are patchier and narrower today. In some areas, sea urchins are now more abundant than they were before sea star wasting disease took hold. The sunflower sea stars that once kept purple urchin populations in check were devastated by wasting disease over the past decade, and warmer water gave the urchins the conditions they needed to explode in number. This increase in urchin populations can contribute to kelp loss, though the scale varies by location and type of urchin. Limited areas characterized by low macroalgae cover and high purple urchin densities have been documented along the outer coast of Vancouver Island, the western strait of 𝐉𝐴, and the San Juan Islands. What ecologists call an urchin barren, that is the technical term, and it means exactly what it sounds like, is a stretch of seafloor that was once dense kelp canopy and is now stripped stone. Not habitat loss in the abstract, a specific, visible erasure. And that erasure has a direct line to the orcas. The 3 southern resident killer whale pods have distinct seasonal distributions along the west coast, primarily influenced by the movements of Chinook and other salmon runs. When the kelp thins, the salmon that move through it have fewer places to shelter, fewer of the smaller fish that the kelp forest sustains to feed on. The cascade runs upward fast. The July 2025 population census counted only 74 whales in this struggling population. 74 animals. The entire southern resident community, 3 pods, every calf, every elder matriarch, fits into a number smaller than the crowd at a neighborhood cafe on a Saturday morning. A significant level of unsuccessful pregnancies, averaging around 75%, according to ongoing monitoring data, with peer-reviewed research documenting rates up to 69% in one study window, points to lack of adequate food as a main stressor. These orcas are not starving because of some distant abstraction. They are starving because the food web directly beneath Victoria's coastline is being quietly disassembled. But the salmon's failure doesn't end at the water's edge. When Chinook runs collapse and salmon fail to reach their spawning grounds in the rivers feeding into southern Vancouver Island, something goes missing from the forest. Salmon carry marine nitrogen in their bodies, nitrogen fixed in the open ocean. And when they die on the gravel beds, that nutrient pulse feeds everything around them. Bears drag carcasses into the trees. Eagles drop scraps on the forest floor. And the soil fungi threaded through the roots of old-growth Douglas fir, the mycorrhizal networks that move water and nutrients between trees, depend on that marine-derived nitrogen to sustain the largest organisms in the ecosystem. Scientists call this a trophic cascade. It means the ocean's crisis is literally starving the forest. The kelp thins, the salmon fail, the orca goes hungry, and somewhere uphill, in the roots of a 200-year-old fir, the soil grows a little less rich than it was the year before. This is the web, every thread connected to every other. And from the shoreline, if you pull your gaze upward from the strait and follow the slope of the land, you reach a place where a completely different unraveling is already underway. One where the timeline is even shorter and the losses even harder to reverse. Those 74 southern resident orcas are struggling largely because the kelp and salmon beneath Victoria's coastline are disappearing. Do you think most people living here even realize the ocean floor is connected to the forest above it? Drop your answer in the comments below, because that forest is unraveling in its own way, and the timeline there is even shorter. Follow the slope of the land inland from that thinning kelp canopy, and you reach a place where the unraveling has a different texture. Drier, older, quieter, and in some ways more complete. The Gary Oak meadows of southern Vancouver Island do not look like anything else in Canada. The trees are gnarled and silver-barked, their branches reaching in directions that seem to defy the prevailing wind rather than follow it. In spring, the meadow floor beneath them erupts in 𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐴s, blue-purple flowers that once fed Coast Salish communities across these islands for thousands of years. And the air carries a warmth that feels genuinely strange, a dry, sun-soaked microclimate that has no business existing this close to a temperate rainforest. That warmth is not an accident. It is the product of a rain shadow cast by the Olympic Mountains to the south and the Vancouver Island ranges to the west, a meteorological shelter that has made this corner of the coast one of the most ecologically singular places in the country. Gary Oak ecosystems are among the most endangered in Canada, with less than 5% remaining in a near natural state. Most of the remnants are isolated, fragmented communities with no connection to other Gary Oak communities. Scattered survivors rather than a functioning whole. And more than 100 species of plants, mammals, reptiles, birds, butterflies, and other insects are officially listed as at risk in these ecosystems. That is one of the greatest concentrations of species at risk per hectare in the entire country, packed into fragments of meadow that most people drive past without a second glance. The immediate threat from warming is not dramatic in the way a flood is dramatic. It is quiet and relentless. Milder winters mean Douglas fir seedlings, which historically were killed back by frost or cleared by fire, now survive and grow in the open meadow. They shade out the 𝐒𝐿𝐴s and the grasses beneath the oaks. The meadow does not burn or flood. It simply closes in, tree by tree, until the open structure that made it extraordinary is gone. Which is why what is happening on the ground right now matters so much. Controlled burns, carried out in partnership with the British Columbia Wildfire Service, are being used to control invasive species and improve the condition of the meadows, a practice rooted in the long history of burning done by Coast Salish communities in the area, who used fire to encourage the growth of edible plants and maintain the open landscape. Coast Salish land stewardship kept these meadows open for millennia. The Douglas fir invasion accelerated precisely when that burning stopped. What contemporary land managers are now doing, reviving prescribed fire as an ecological tool in 2025 and 2026, is not nostalgia dressed up as conservation. It is the most evidence-grounded intervention available, and it is working in the patches where it has been applied. Then there is the marbled murrelet, a bird that makes the web's complexity impossible to ignore. The murrelet nests in the forests of this coastline, laying a single egg on the wide, mossy branches of old-growth conifers, then flying miles inland to brood its chick before returning daily to the ocean for fish. It is a living thread stitched between two worlds. The old-growth Douglas fir canopy inland and the cold, productive waters of the strait. Habitat loss continues, and reduced prey availability in warming marine waters has likely impacted nest success and the survival of juveniles. The murrelet does not have the luxury of adapting to one crisis at a time. The forest and the ocean are failing it simultaneously. The 2025 State of the Birds report lists the marbled murrelet as a yellow alert tipping point species, meaning it has lost more than 50% of its population in the past 50 years. Half the population gone in the span of a single human lifetime. And yet the bird persists, still threading its impossible commute between the canopy and the sea, still finding the wide, mossy branches of the oldest trees, still proof that the old-growth forest and the cold strait are not separate stories. They are the same one. That is what this place keeps insisting on. The kelp and the salmon and the orca and the forest soil and the 𝐒𝐻𝐭𝐮 meadow and the murrelet. They are not a list of separate concerns. They are a single system, each part holding the others in place. Kelp restoration pilots are underway in the Salish Sea. The Gary Oak meadows are being burned back open. The southern resident orca population recorded calf births in 2025. None of these are victories, exactly. They are more like evidence. Evidence that the web, when it is understood in its full complexity and tended with that understanding, does not have to keep unraveling. Stand at the edge of the Strait of 𝐻𝐻𝐿 again. The same cold water, the same smell of kelp and salt and something ancient. The view has not changed, but you are no longer looking at a postcard. You are looking at a negotiation between warming seas and recovering kelp beds, between vanishing old growth and the birds that cannot nest anywhere else, between centuries of Indigenous stewardship and the urgent need to remember what that knowledge was actually for. The system is under pressure it has never faced before. And it is, improbably, still here. Subscribe for more like this.